Hello and welcome to another conversation on how to create success. Today's topic is on interviewing. We'll quickly brush on how to find a position. And by the end of this session, you should have some basic answers to questions that are commonly asked during interviews. As with everything we work on in career services, we are trying to help you identify how your academic training, your experiences, and your leadership combine into helping you find success in your career search. Now, when we work with students, most students come to our office and they show us what they're doing to find jobs. They'll often go to Indeed or Simply Hired or a similar type of website to try to find positions. When we tell them that's the wrong way to search for jobs, they're often surprised. The secret to actually finding a job is as true as the old adage. It's not what you know, but who. And so if you really want to find a job quickly, one of the first things we help you do is connect with the Chamber of Commerce or Academic Development Group in the area you're trying to relocate to. In addition, we encourage you to join Young Professionals, even if you're just a social media member, because the Young Professional groups will post positions, they'll share insights, they'll tell you who's hiring, and give you all kinds of great details that you're not going to find anywhere else on the web. Finally, we'll help you set up with an account with LinkedIn, because LinkedIn will also help you find people in the organizations you're most interested in. In addition to this, we often will help you create a top 10 list of organizations that might be interested to work for or job types you're interested in applying to. Now, as you go through the process of finding a job, you will get invited to interviews, and those interview invites will be based on what you see on the screen here, the major you had and the performance you had during your academic career. That's not limited to your grade point average, but more so, did you take what you learned in your major and implement it in experiences, including internships and jobs, or did you learn skills that were outside the ordinary? The employers are also going to look at your involvement. Were you involved in the community? Were you involved on campus? Did you hold leadership roles? And the most important thing they like to see is, have you already done the job you're applying to? Have you had the right experiences, the internships, the job shadows, the field experiences that will demonstrate that you have the needed skills required to be successful on day one? Now, as we think about this, really what they're trying to get to on there are these skills-based education. Are you able to work in teams? Are you adept at solving problems? Do you communicate well with others? And have you taken on those leadership roles? Other skills they'd like to see are listed on the screen. One thing our employers continually tell us is they really like it if you can pull off what you know you're already good at and discuss that during the interview process. Now, when you start preparing for the interview, it can seem overwhelming. If you did a simple Google search on interview questions, you're going to come up with millions upon millions of pages. We try to break through all that and break this down to a really simple way to prepare for interviews. And yes, you can prepare. Now, what you do control immediately before you even step foot in the interview is that you're going to dress the right part. If the organization you're interviewing with has a business casual work environment, you're going to show up in business professional. If the organization you're interviewing with has a casual work environment, you're going to show up in business casual. You're going to arrive on time. If you arrive on time, that means 10 minutes prior to the start of your interview. And when you do arrive, you're going to communicate clearly what your purpose is there. So when you walk in and meet reception, you'll say, "Hello, my name is, I'm here to meet with, and I have a scheduled interview at." What that'll do is communicate to the person at the desk that you're there for something important. The other nice thing about that is if you mispronounce the person's name you're interviewing with, the person at reception will almost always correct you. So now you have a nice way to approach the person that's going to interview you. One thing I do mention is that prior to entering the interview, know what type of interview you're going to walk into. Will it be a group interview, a panel interview, a case study? Knowing this will help you prepare as you enter the room. When you do enter the room, make sure you have a Padfolio. That's a leather-bound folder, and stick a few extra copies in your Padfolio. I can't go without saying you have to be nice to everyone. In addition, make sure you watch your tone, sound enthusiastic and excited, and ensure that your nonverbals are matching up to what you're saying. As you prepare for interview questions, there are typically 5 types of questions. You'll see them on the screen here. Case interviews, they're looking at the process you go to answer a question. They might come in with a complicated case. It might be 3 to 4 pages long, give you a half hour to read through the case and write up notes, and then a 15-minute presentation. That's not an uncommon pattern to use specifically in IT. Technical interviews differ because what they're looking at is what your knowledge base is in a content area. This is seen mostly in specialist roles such as IT, some in educational technology, and places like that. Conversational interviews are used to identify, do you have the ability to relate to someone? These are often used in sales jobs. It'll be a conversation not about your skills, but about another topic. Traditional interviews are interviews where there's open-ended questions. Tell me about yourself. Give me your 3 strengths and the 3 weaknesses. That differs from your behavioral interview because a behavioral interview is looking at what you've done in the past. So how you treated your high school job is likely how you're going to treat your professional job. Now, the reality is almost all interviews have some sort of blending of all these interview questions. The other thing you want to be aware of is the method they're going to interview you. If it's by phone, you want to make sure your connection is really clear and that the background noise is limited. If it's by video, you need to make sure your backdrop looks really solid. If it's a campus interview, it'll be a first round 15 to 30 minute conversation. Now, there's two types of group interviews. One type of group interview is where you walk in and you're being interviewed by 2 or more people. The other type of group interview is one where you walk in with 3 or 4 other candidates and you're being interviewed by one other person. In both cases, you want to acknowledge the groups there and not worry about them. Just focus on what you can control. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to start working on today how to prepare yourself for the interview. Here's what the employers want to see from you. They want to see your academic background, your experiences, and your demonstrated skills. And then anything that makes you unique. They'll ask the question, tell me about yourself, but really what they're trying to get towards is what should they know about you? This is a 30-second to 2-minute answer that will highlight your experiences up to that point. Be sure to tell it in a coherent story format. As you prepare for the interview, also do the same type of preparation for the company. What do they do? What makes them different than others in the market? What's their company culture? And how does the position you're applying to fit within the larger organization? Now let's think about how to write your stories for behavior-based interviews. In this case, we're going to write a story based on experience you've had in the past. We're not going to think about questions, but we're going to think about stories from your past work experiences or stories from your student group activities. And we're going to think of like maybe the best or worst day or a project you worked on or a customer that was really good or really bad, things that stand out of the ordinary and something you were proud of. If you pull off a couple of those and write a story for that in a format called STAR, that's the situation, task, action, or result, you'll walk in that interview with an ability to answer any question. Let me show you how this works. In this case, we're going to write a story based upon something out of the ordinary. And this person was working at a retail store. They were in charge of inventory reports and they were running behind. Now what they did is they ended up talking to their manager and asking if they could coordinate bringing in donuts. And they contacted all their coworkers, had them come in, and they counted the product in the store. So here's the situation. The retail environment, that's where this is occurring at. The task is they had to do an inventory report. Now for most students, what they forget is the action phase. What did this person do? Well, they talked to management. They coordinated with the team members. They got food. And the result was that they finished the report 2 days early. If you start with 6 and end with 20 stories, there's no question that will throw you off. Let me show you how this works in real life. So look at this story, and then let's look at these questions. Question 1, tell me about a time when you had to put in an extra effort. So they had to come in and do extra work to do the inventory count. Describe a time when you needed contributions from others. They had to contact their teams by text to bring them in for assistance. Tell me about a time when you had to work with someone you didn't like. Of course, on a team, you're going to have people you don't like to work with. And finally, share with me a time you made a mistake. Well, in this case, they're running behind on inventory. 1 answer, 4 questions. Take the question and change the focus just so slightly so that it can solve the questions we're being asked. Beyond this point, you're going to be asked about your strengths and weaknesses. Where we see students struggle with is often the weakness. What I want to see on your weakness is I want to see what you're working on to grow professionally. Do not say you're hardworking or obsessive because as a strength or weakness, because those are used so much it becomes just white noise. What I want to see on a weakness is not a character flaw. So don't tell me you're constantly late or you're disheveled or you don't like people. I want to hear things about something you're trying to improve. So maybe it might be prioritizing what's most important in your day. Or you're trying to improve your communication skills and you're doing that by joining a local community group that helps people with public speaking. Those are the types of things we want to see you prepare for. And then the final one is, why should I hire you? Now here's the beauty of the why should I hire you. You've already answered this question. Go back to the very first question. Tell me about yourself. It's the same answer. So once you've written tell me about yourself, we just change the focus a little bit and it becomes the same answer for why should I hire you. Now at the end of the interview, you'll know it's the end of the interview because they'll say, do you have any questions for us? If you have no questions, you've just told the interviewer that you're not interested. So always have a few questions prepared. Never ask about salary. Instead, what you'll do is you go in with questions about what will help you make that decision if you want the job. It might be about the training program. It might be how will you know about your success within the organization. It might be about the culture. I've had some students even ask fun questions about, how does your team celebrate success? What's some of the food days you guys do or whatever it might be that way. Do inquire about the next step. So once you're nearing the end of the interview, you'll say, I want to thank you for taking the time. Can you share with me what the next step is or when I'll hear from you next? As soon as you leave the interview, you should send a thank you email. Just a really short message thanking them for their time and consideration. If there's something you felt like that you wanted to clarify or add detail to, this is a nice chance to write this, but keep the thank you letter short. In summary, if you think about everything we talked on here today, we come back to understanding one basic thing. You're in control of the interview. If you do have any questions or would like to practice your interviewing, contact Career Services at careerservices.uni.edu or by calling 319-273-6857. Thanks and good luck.